They control roughly 20% of the world's standard oil supply, so easily extractable by conventional means. They own all oil fields in Saudi Arabia, and they are routinely among the top 5 most valuable companies. I am talking about Saudi Aramco.
Saudi Aramco.
A strong Saudi Arabia needs a strong Aramco.
The world's largest oil producing company, pumping millions of barrels a day to become the world's largest ever traded stock.
In the vast deserts of Arabia stands a giant named Saudi Aramco. Saudi Aramco is owned mostly by the Saudi Arabian government and a group called the Public Investment Fund, the PIF. Together, they hold more than 98% of this giant's power. Now, this isn't just any company. It's like the financial backbone of Saudi Arabia. It's the SBF to the FTX. Saudi Aramco is shaping how rich the country is and how much influence it has in the world. Picture this. Saudi Aramco controls a whopping 20% of all the oil in the entire world. It's the chief player in a game where everyone wants oil. Saudi Aramco is also the biggest member in a group called OPEC, which is like a gentleman's club because essentially it's countries, i.e. men, deciding about important stuff, i.e. oil. But Saudi Aramco is not just about oil, it's like a behind-the-scenes player in global politics, pulling strings in different countries around the world. During a time when the world was going through crises like Russia causing mild trouble in Ukraine and the COVID-19 pandemic, Saudi Aramco didn't just survive, it made a crazy amount of money, $161 billion. But they are not limited to oil. The owner, the Public Investment Fund, buys big parts of other companies worldwide, like Nintendo, Lucid Motors, they make semi-solid electric cars, Live Nation, a concert company, and even the company running Carnival Cruise Lines. Saudi Aramco is not just about business, it's also how the world sees Saudi Arabia. Once upon a time, people thought of Saudi Arabia as a place with nomads and farms. Now, people see it as much more. But there's also a dark side to it. Saudi Aramco was controlled by the US at some point. Slowly but surely, this control slipped, and Saudi Arabia was able to grow a giant that controls arguably the most important resource in the world: energy. Oh, and of course there's also this thing called CO2 that's causing climate change. Saudi Aramco emitted over 60 billion tons of it, which is a lot if you are wondering, more than 4% of global output. How did Saudi Aramco become the monster it is today? Was their rise halal? And what can young, ambitious empire builders learn from their story? And what's their future in a world that is increasingly looking towards green energy? Before we dive into today's video, this video is made possible by our fantastic partners over at Keeps. Now you know we only team up with brands we believe in, and Keeps is no exception. Are you tired of dealing with hair loss but don't want to hassle with doctor visits or trips to the pharmacy? Well, Keeps has got you covered. They're an online subscription service that brings clinically proven treatments for hair loss right to your doorstep. But let's get personal for a moment. Hair loss is a journey. That's why they provide personalized treatment plans tailored to your unique needs, all recommended by licensed medical providers. Plus, the flexibility of choosing delivery options means you're in control of your hair care journey. Now, I'm blessed with my hair genetics, but I also wanted to stay that way. At the same time, I wanted a solution that was convenient and effective. That's when I discovered Keeps. Their treatments are not only affordable, but also 90% effective according to clinical studies. Keeps offers both FDA-approved hair loss treatment options as well as 2-in-1 gel for that extra boost. From hair thickening shampoo to conditioner and styling pomade, they got you covered. And here's the best part, Keeps has helped nearly 1 million men keep their hair, with over 4,500 5-star reviews. Treatments are delivered discreetly to your door. Now here's the deal. If you're ready to take the next step in your hair care journey, hair loss stops with Keeps. And guess what? We've got a special offer just for you. Head to keeps.com/megalomedia or click the link in the description to get started. Remember, Keeps is not just about hair, it's about confidence. Click the link in the description and get started. Back in the 1930s, something monumental begins in the deserts of Saudi Arabia. It's a time when the world awakens from the aftermath of World War I, and a visionary leader, King Abd al-Aziz, has a bold idea. The namesake of the legendary Sikh influencer Ziz grants a concession to an American company called Standard Oil of California, creating what we now know as Aramco. This isn't just a deal about digging for oil though. It's a pact that ties Saudi Arabia's fate to the black gold beneath its sands. The idea is simple. The US company will search for oil, and in return, Saudi Arabia will get a piece of the profits. The partnership aims to boost the country's GDP and bring prosperity to its people and camels. And it does. The jobs created around the oil industry not only increase the country's wealth, but also improve the lives of the workers. But why does the US care so much about oil in Saudi Arabia? Well, it isn't just about making money. The United States has a bigger plan. They realize that having a secure source of oil is crucial for their own growth and safety. So the deal with Saudi Arabia isn't just a business move. It's about securing the energy needed for the nation's progress and security. And this is where it gets interesting, because they are going to lose this access. In the backdrop of this collaboration, a deeper geopolitical game is unfolding. There's looming threat from a group called the Hashemites, and King Abdul Aziz needs a strong ally. So he turns to the US. This move isn't just about getting weapons either. It's about forming a friendship, a functional one. Like when you befriend a bouncer at a club or the autistic math nerd that helps you with your assignments. The king wants a formal military alliance with the US, a shield against potential threats. This moment isn't just about arms, it declares that Saudi Arabia's security is tied to the US strategic interests. And this is significant because it sets the stage for a partnership that will shape the destinies of both nations. As the 1950s dawn, the partnership between Saudi Arabia and Aramco proves to be a big triumph. The vast deserts yield oil in quantities substantial enough for commercial export. This period also marks a shift. It propels Aramco into a new phase of growth and influence. Then in the 1950s, Aramco finds itself under the ownership of 4 shareholder companies, all based in the city of New York. These companies include Standard Oil of California, known today as Chevron, and 3 others with familiar names: Texaco, Standard Oil Company of New Jersey, now ExxonMobil, and Socony Vacuum, the predecessor to Mobil and ExxonMobil. America is experiencing a transformation of its own during this time. The post-war era witnesses a surge in oil consumption driven by the spread of cars and the creation of suburbs and cities. The American dream is unfolding, and with it, a need for oil. Consumers are embracing excess consumption, spending freely on the luxuries that come with prosperity. The concept of energy efficiency and environmental concerns, so prevalent in today's discourse, takes a back seat. The focus is on abundance, not conservation. Yes, that makes me nostalgic too. Overproduction of surplus gas becomes a notable feature of this period, and this contributes to keeping fuel prices relatively cheap. Now we should feel even more nostalgic. In short, the abundance of oil is a driving force behind the economic boom. It isn't just about fueling cars, it's about powering the American way of life. In the 1960s, a big development shapes the oil landscape: the creation of an organization that many think is highly criminal. Of course, I'm talking about OPEC, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries. This cartel consisting of Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela, aims to control oil prices by managing production to maximize profits for its members. A very noble mission statement. The background includes a history of discontent among companies due to low oil prices caused by overproduction. And how do they use their power? At first, very ineffectively. For example, in 1967, with the oil embargo, the second day of the Six-Day War, the Arab nations collectively decide to deter countries supporting Israel militarily. While some Middle Eastern countries limit oil shipments, placing embargoes on the United States and the UK, OPEC's participation is limited due to the short duration of the war. The embargo also faces challenges such as the non-cohesiveness of Arab nations. They have a lack of consensus on embargo participants and the ability of competitors to step in. In short, it was still a big bunch of bigger egos, but they got their shit together very quickly. Fast forward to the Yom Kippur War in October 1973, where Egypt and Syria attack Israel in retaliation to the 1967 Six-Day War. The ensuing 1973 oil embargo sees Arab OPEC members imposing restrictions again on countries supporting Israel, including US, Canada, Netherlands, Portugal, and South Africa. This embargo not only bans petroleum exports, but also introduces production cuts, leading to a gas crisis and increased costs in the USA. That sounds familiar. Gas prices surge from $3.50 to $10.10 per barrel. That's approximately $25 to $62 adjusted for inflation today. And this results in gas rationing, lower speed limits, inflation, long lines at gas stations. Clearly a great way to ruin people's days. While the 1967 embargo is considered a failure, the 1973 embargo achieves its goals. And even more, it keeps the prices high even after it's lifted. And this showcases the political influence Saudi oil holds over larger countries. And it's here that the US begins exploring alternative energy sources, emphasizing energy conservation and working towards reducing dependence on foreign energy. And this also sets the stage for a more complex and interconnected global energy landscape, right? Because now many nations imitate the US, because the US is the best country in the world, as everyone knows. Now, in the late 1970s and early 1980s, Saudi Aramco undergoes a significant transformation that will change everything. It will forever shift the power balance with the Saudis and the US, and it will accelerate the rise of Saudi Aramco. It's a shift away from US control and towards a complete privatization and control by the Saudi government. And this process of privatization commences in 1973, when the Saudi government acquires a 25% stake in Aramco. By 1974, 1 year later, this ownership increases to 60%. And by 1980, Saudi Arabia assumes full control, 100%. This shift is not only a change in ownership, it also brings about a creative renaming from Aramco to Saudi Aramco. With the Saudi government now at the helm, Saudi Aramco undergoes a strategic shift in the 1980s, and it continues evolving throughout the 2000s and 2010s. The company expands from primarily producing oil to becoming fully integrated, both vertically and horizontally. Well, that's something useless MBA graduates like to say, but what does it actually mean? The upstream segment of Saudi Aramco, responsible for drilling oil, continues to play a crucial role. Simultaneously, the downstream segment's activities diversify to include refining and petrochemical manufacturing, supply and trading, distribution, and power generation. This marks Saudi Aramco's evolution into a global energy and chemicals enterprise. For example, they foster partnerships in North America, Korea, Asia, and Japan. And what else does this vertical and horizontal integration mean? Power. More specifically, pricing power. because they have more control over the supply and demand dynamics of oil. And as a logical next step, they invest in cutting-edge technology. For example, simulation software that is aimed at enhancing the performance of oil drilling. And this way you can estimate whether there's reserves left in the reservoirs. And crucially, during this transition, Aramco is reported to operate independently of political influences. It retains its skilled workforce, and engineers continue to lead until the 2010s, when management responsibilities shift. And now there's about to be a massive change. Because in the early 2000s, a revolutionary process called fracking emerges. And it disturbs the halal rice of Saudi Aramco. It completely alters the energy landscape. This technology allows the USA to extract oil from shale rock formations, shifting the balance of power away from Saudi Aramco. But that's maybe not even the biggest danger. The really big danger sips soy matcha lattes and might even have purple hair. The rise of the ESG culture brings new challenges. Concerns about the environmental impact of oil extraction, coupled with controversies surrounding Middle East religious and labor practices. All of those reshape the energy narrative. On the one hand, there's a potential decline in demand for oil, especially in the US, Europe and China, as they transition to greener energies for political optics. But emerging economies, on the other hand, like India and Africa, they might increase their need for oil during industrialization, as citizens can afford more luxuries. What do if you don't know what to do? You consider going public. In 2016, Crown Prince MBS floats the idea of an IPO for Saudi Aramco, estimating its worth at approximately $2 trillion. The plan is to sell 5% of the company, generating around $100 billion. However, this figure is controversial, as international investors value the company between 1.1 and 1.7 trillion, not at $2 trillion. Why? Mostly due to concerns about oil demand, pricing volatility, geopolitical factors, and the validity of oil reserve claims. I mean, who tells you they really have a lot of oil left? And the trouble does not stop there. Aramco is unwilling to provide the strict disclosure requirements for Western stock exchanges, including details about oil reserves and proprietary extraction techniques. So they decide to list on the Riyadh Stock Exchange. But this is also kind of a protective move. Controversial valuation figures could tarnish the company's image globally. The decision to scale back and focus on Riyadh aims to also avoid damaging the company's reputation and bringing shame to the country. In 2019, 1.5% of Aramco is offered on the Saudi Stock Exchange at approximately 30 SAR, so that's $8 a share. Saudi retail investors holding shares for 180 days are eligible to receive 1 share for every 10. And of course, there's more drama. Rumors circulate about pressure on Saudi individuals accused of corruption to buy shares, which would suggest some government manipulation to bolster prices. But when it's all said and done, the IPO is actually deemed a success. It generates $29.4 billion, which is a lot. And what do you do with all of that money? It's channeled into various government projects. The company also invests in alternative energy sources and carbon reduction methods. All good? Should we, buy the stock? Maybe, but there are still many risks to the business. The UN investigates Aramco for potential human rights violations related to pollution. Fluctuations in market prices for hydrocarbons pose financial challenges for Aramco. The company's ability to fund projects from its operating activities is impacted exactly by that. And being a state-owned company, Aramco's fate is frankly also intertwined with Saudi Arabia's political actions and its standing on the world stage. Political decisions can significantly impact the company's trajectory in the future. And that's where we need to introduce the Vision 2030. Saudi Aramco might not be a long-term priority. Enter Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, born in 1985. He's a key figure in shaping Saudi Aramco and Saudi Arabia, and getting enemies jailed whenever necessary. Starting his political journey in 2007 at King Saud University, MBS quickly ascends through government roles. His strategic position include a special advisor to his father, a role that I also fulfill quite successfully, governor of Riyadh province, and later defense minister. In 2017, MBS becomes the crown prince, initiating a mass arrest of prominent figures. This anti-corruption move, though controversial, it actually resonates with the public. It addresses concerns about wealth inequality. The substantial funds collected contribute to ambitious government projects like, for example, Vision 2030. And now, what is Vision 2030? In April 2016, MBS launches Vision 2030. The primary goal is to reduce Saudi's dependence on oil and diversifying its sources of income. The key pillars include develop other sectors such as tourism, entertainment, technology, and mining to contribute significantly to the GDP, privatize more sectors and companies, expand the role of the Public Investment Fund and make it one of the world's largest sovereign wealth funds, enhance quality of life, digitize, improve Saudi Arabia's standing in the world, and a couple of more initiatives. Their brochure isn't very specific, but I guess lots of details are being executed behind closed doors. So what's the fate of Saudi Aramco in an ever increasingly greener world? Will they gain or lose power? It is difficult to give a definite answer, but they are working on some interesting initiatives. Aramco Ventures, a 1.5 billion sustainability fund that supports Aramco's ambitions to achieve net zero scope 1 and 2 greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. They focus on stuff like carbon management, utilization and storage, including direct air capture. If green technology does pan out, these sectors could be extremely lucrative. I'm sure green tech is here to stay even if ESG companies aren't doing great right now. And if the technology hits a dead end, it would be still good for PR that an oil giant is willing to invest in emission reduction. But then they also have their digital and industrial fund. That fund is investing in various advanced manufacturing R&D technologies that can cut down on costs in manufacturing valves and specialized sensors. They're even leveraging blockchain technology here. This could be good to cut down costs in manufacturing and refining, and even create new drilling processes to extract unconventional oil sources. And lastly, but not least, especially for young megalomaniacs looking to raise capital, Prosperity 7. They invest in outside technology, not directly related to the company or even completely unrelated to the energy industry. I assume this is for pure diversification purposes. For example, they go into blockchain, fintech, medtech, and B2B SaaS. And if you look at their website, it seems like most of these companies are Chinese tech companies. As Saudi Aramco navigates through these twists in the energy saga, it's like playing chess with oil barrels, one move at a time, until checkmate. Or should we say, oilmate? Ha! Alright, that wasn't as funny.